Libyan rebels executed 67 Gaddafi fighters and possibly the dictator himself a year ago. That's according to a new report by Human Rights Watch. The loyalists of the regime were said to have been abused and murdered. The findings also imply the very same militias that toppled the colonel still play a major role in Libyan politics. Let's now talk to Sabah Al-Mukhtar, the president of the Arab Lawyers Association, joining us live here on RT today. Good to see you. The group's findings call into question the whole official line that Muammar Gaddafi was killed in crossfire. What do you make of it?
Well, I think Churchill said that the first victim of war is the truth. If one looks at what the government in Libya is saying, what the rebels have said, what NATO has said, indeed, even the major powers like the US and Britain, they were all telling lies, to say the least. This revelation is not, although it is now documented, but it is not new. Everybody expected that. I've attended a number of hearings in the Human Rights Council whereby people were questioning the number of civilians who were killed by NATO. But at the end of the day, NATO and the US and the Western power got themselves involved in removing the regime without knowing with whom they are going in bed. They have not looked at what is the possibility thereafter. And any attempt to try and say that the revolution was actually led with some sort of a policy within Libya, this is just not correct. The people revolted, NATO jumped on board, and that's the result of it. So, of course, human rights abuses were done by Gaddafi, by the revolution, and by NATO. And NATO plays quite a big role and has a full responsibility. I think it's very embarrassing this revelation would be to the Western powers.
I was just going to say, some might indeed call it embarrassing. Here we have the issues that Libyan rebels executed 67 Gaddafi fighters and, of course, the leader himself. And, of course, they were being backed by NATO the entire time. The report appears, though, just days before Libya celebrates the anniversary of Sirte's fall, Gaddafi's hometown. Since then, the country's new leaders have depended heavily on former rebel militias to secure cities in the absence of a strong national army. How do you assess their role in the country's security at the moment?
I don't think this is working out yet, because at the present moment the government is taking very harsh line on, for instance, Beni Walid. They're using, they are bombing it from the air and rockets, because Beni Walid was one of the towns which stood against the intervention of the outside world. You have the factions between the Islamist and non-Islamist. You've got the various tribes. So all these factions are taking the law into their hand. The government is totally not in control. They're trying to paper on the cracks by this process which is going on, the political one. I hope they succeed, but this is, again, it reminds of the situation what they have done in Iraq, for instance, when they created these various factions, put them one against each other, and then at the end of the day, put them in the same uniform, and they called it the army. Well, the allegiance does not lie with the nation. So the armed forces in Libya, or those with weapons at the moment, their allegiance is not to Libya. Their allegiance is either to their tribe or their town or their background or indeed their politics.
Well, you talk about these tribal factions, having no clear allegiance here, and we bring up the issue of the government, and you mentioned moments ago the government has no control over what's truly happening in Libya. Do you think Libya has come to a point of benefiting since the Gaddafi regime was ousted?
Well, I wouldn't expect revolutions to produce results, positive results for the people. But what we have, the disturbing thing is that everything in Libya at the moment is going bad except the export of oil. The Western powers, whatever their motives were, democracy and dictatorship and all that, really at the end of the day, it is just the financial interest you have there. Italy and France and Britain and America, they are falling over each other. Each one of them is backing one group or another, whoever can get them the business. The Libyan people are certainly suffering at the moment more than they did under Gaddafi. Gaddafi was a dictator, he was a madman, he was doing all the bad things for the people, but that is only when the people were against him. At the present moment, we have a situation where the Libyans are pitched against each other, the government is pitched against some of them, the tribes are one against each other. The only thing that is going is the oil, and that's as long as it goes on, the world will not remember Libya, will not think about it. Human Rights Watch and other human rights organizations or raising this issue, quite rightly so, they are dealing with this issue when they know that, in fact, when one looks at Chris Stevens, the U.S. ambassador, who actually, he is a U.S. ambassador, and he goes there and take a picture, a photograph with the body of Gaddafi showing the thumbs up signal. Now, isn't that an abuse of human rights? Is that what the Geneva Convention says about people who are killed? Is this the respect of human rights? But no, that is a different issue. What we come out, so the selectivity in this aspect on the politicians, not on the side of the human rights organization or the other organizations. Those people are doing their job. What has happened there is contrary to the human rights, it's contrary to international law. It constitutes war crimes, and people should be answering for that. But does that include NATO? People are talking at the present...
Does it include NATO, and does it include any members of NATO actually being held to account in the International Criminal Court at The Hague? Sabah Al-Mukhtar, I wish we had more time for this. We don't. The president of the Arab Lawyers Association, many thanks for coming on RT today.